Game over, man. Game over.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
So serious.
Roll out.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Chasing the Gold. I'm Shadan Larkey. I am so excited for this episode because we're going to be talking all about Cannes, and I invited a special guest to dig into all things French film festivals with me. Special guest, tell our listeners and viewers who you are and what brings you to Chasing the Gold today.
Yeah, hi, my name is Héctor González. I am a film critic and independent writer. I cover plenty of festivals throughout the year, Sundance, Berlinale, and New York Film Festival. But Cannes, I always cover it online, with the exception of this year that I got a chance to go there.
So this was your first year in person?
Yeah.
Okay, I have so many questions. What was it like? Was it what you thought it was going to be? In what ways was it similar, different? How does it compare to other festivals you've gone to?
Oh, it's amazing. I want to go again. I'm making plans with other Puerto Rican film critics so that they can go with me because I want them to experience the magic of Cannes. It is stressful. It is a stressful couple of days, but unlike other festivals, it didn't feel very, I don't know, like it didn't feel like too much. Like in other festivals, you see like 5, maybe like almost 6 films a day, and this one's like a bit shorter. You take your time with each one, you know. Of course, there's the running and gunning over there, you know, you across the Riviera and stuff, but it's a bit relaxing, more so than the other ones that I have covered.
That's interesting because, Cannes is like a bucket list film festival for me, but I always have this impression that it's like stuffy. I mean, you have to there's like a dress code and everything, right?
For the big premieres, yes, you have to wear a tuxedo, but I didn't go to none of them. Yeah, and the other ones you can go comfortable, you know.
Did you have like a James Bond tuxedo packed just in case?
No. No. I don't like wearing none of that. I want to be comfortable, you know. And it's the summer, you know. It's really hot out, so.
Did you get to do anything non-festival? Did you get to have like nice croissants? Were you?
Yeah, I went out to eat, you know, a couple times, and some days like where, you know, I didn't pack my schedule that much, so I went outside, you know, I did a couple other things. But it was mainly, you know, while I was doing other things, it was mainly like writing on my notebook or on my computer, you know, so it's still like covering the festival throughout the entirety of the stay.
How many reviews did you write for In Session? We got to plug your work here. Just show off a little bit.
I think it's like 14. Like 3 of them are capsule review pieces, each one covering 3 films, but in total 14.
All right, so let's get into it. Being that this is Chasing the Gold, it's obviously our Oscar podcast. So what films do you think? Well, actually, let me just start here. Tell me a little bit about everything you saw, and then we'll get into Oscar chances.
Do we start from worst to best, or
this is your spotlight, buddy? You however you want to do it. I'm just so excited to hear about it.
Well, okay, let's start from worst to best because I want to get some of these out of the way. The worst film I saw at Cannes was Parthenope by what is his name? I forgot it immediately who directed. Paolo Sorrentino. I'm not a fan of Paolo Sorrentino. A couple of friends of mine call me like a hater of Paolo Sorrentino because mocking him, I call him like a fake Fellini, a fake Federico Fellini. And for some reason, I can't seem to connect with any of his films. And this one was no exception. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful film, you know, because it's in Italy, you know, and the cinematography is excellent, you know, and all the vistas from Italy, you know, everything is gorgeous in the film. But it's just a shallow movie. It's a really empty movie, and you know, it's Sorrentino saying, "Oh, what like you know." I don't know what he's trying to say, really. I don't know what he's trying to do here, but he has a couple of beautiful shots, a couple of scenes that have some cinematic spark, but in reality, it's just a shallow project. It's just empty, and it's too long. It takes too long to say like an undemanding point. It's really, really terrible.
Wow. I have to be honest, the only Pablo Sorrentino project I've seen is the Zendaya and Anne Hathaway Bulgari ad that plays at TIFF. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that's pure art to me. So
I think that's his best work.
oh my gosh. All right, so let's move up the rung of the ladder. So I love how this is going so far.
The well, in the one from 28, the 27th film in my so-called ranking, because I don't like doing rankings. I only do them for festivals, just to like when I want to talk about 'em, like to have a sort of order. But in number 27th, I have a film that won two prizes at Cannes. Won the Best Actress prize, and I think won the jury prize or the special jury prize. One of them. It was Emilia Pèrez by Jacques Audiard, and man, a lot of people were counting this like a Palme d'Or favorite, like when it screened. And I was curious about it because it's a musical, but it's also a crime drama, and it's such a weird mixture. And in some ways, that's the only interesting thing in the film because none of the songs are memorable. Some of them even equating to something like very ridiculous, like lyrics and dialogue. And Audiard, I don't think he has like the directorial heft to shoot a musical because none of the dancing sequences, the musical numbers per se, which the movie mostly consists of, it's basically without the vigor of the classical musicals that it inspires from. It's not like a Jacques Demy or a Singing in the Rain or something like that. It doesn't have that vigor. It doesn't have that life that sparks from the dances. And it's you will remember it because it's such an absurd project, and in some ways there are a lot of absurd or like directors coming out of their comfort zones in this year's Cannes slate. But this one was definitely one of the weaker ones of that batch.
All right, so we were on number 26 on your list.
Oh, okay. Number 26. Okay, I'm going to be quick with this one. It's called Holy Cow. It played in the Uncertain Regard selection. I just thought, okay, it's basically a vanilla project. When I say that, it's like a project that it goes by every single trope. You know how it ends. You know how it begins. You know how it develops. And I don't know. I couldn't connect with it at all. It's about a kid who loses his father, and then he has to like make the house payments and take care of his sister, but he doesn't know like what to do exactly. So he seizes the opportunity to like go after a job that makes quick cash, and then he sees that there's a cheese making competition and the winner gets 30,000 euros, and then he makes cheese, and then when he makes cheese, he ponders about life and connections. I don't know. I thought it was pretty like I don't know. I thought it was very boring. I thought it was it's very vanilla. It's better than Parthenope and better than Emilia Pèrez, but it's but it's so like bland. It's so like bland in its cinematic texture that I can't connect with anything that is happening.
I don't have a quip here. I'll just let you keep going on to your next.
No, when I called my friends from over there, I was just ranting like this to them. They were like, "Yeah, I understand you." So
I hear
okay, let me see. Number 25 it's one that I think it won the Semaine de la Critique, the Critics Week top prize. Simon de la Montaña, Simon of the Mountain. Um, it's about the thing. I have a couple problems with the film. I don't know. Okay, the film is up to very much like plenty of interpretation, which I like that. But the problem with that film is that it contains a lot of ambiguity to the point where I I feel very, very distant with what
Mm.
the director wants to do, because it follows a young kid who we meet very like brashly. We are in the middle of a conversation between him that we know because he says his name, and a stranger. They're talking about something. They're talking about a job, and he says that, "Oh, I can't do this. Like I can do the job, but I can do this and this and this and that." And you're like very uncertain about whether he's lying to him or whether he's not. And the film like often tethers between that what he says and how he behaves is like genuine or fake. And it's quite interesting in the first couple of minutes in the film, but then it grows very frustrating because of that ambiguous nature, and it's totally distant for me. I couldn't connect with it at all.
Mm. So I have a question. When you're setting your festival schedule, what kinds of things are you looking for? And obviously, there's always like certain things you don't make it. You end up having to see something else. Inevitably, you end up seeing something that you weren't planning on seeing at all. But what do you sort of prioritize?
Um, of course, I always seek out the projects that I'm most interested in, or projects that or films that have the elements that I really like in film. For example, if there is a body horror movie in the festival, I will immediately go see it. But in the other, like on the other thing, if I see, a film by a director that I really admire, like a David Cronenberg in this case, like a Leos Carax, I will immediately go for it. But the thing is that I don't like going to festivals and like cover what everybody's going to cover.
Mm.
In some ways I did so. I reviewed a couple of films. The Substance, Sonora, Megalopolis. Films by acclaimed directors. Because in this case they are premieres. They're premiering the films at the festival. But it's always interesting to seek out other projects, like go through the slate and see and read about films that you may not know about or may not heard about or may not know anything about the project, nor the director, nor the actors. But if the premise is like interesting, or the images you see like, oh, this might seem intriguing, like worth my time,
Mm.
it's I often check it out, because I don't want to see the attraction comes in the in competition films, but most of the most interesting films end up being on the other section, the Uncertain
Yeah.
Regard or the Rexer's Fortnite or something like that.
Yeah, what a shock that the guy wearing a Love Lies Bleeding sweatshirt loves body horror.
Yeah.
All right, that's a good tease for the rest of your list, though. So, I mean, I completely agree. Well, I have to be honest. I think in my experience in the past, I do tend to go for the starry experiences, but I feel like, yeah, the best things that I've seen are the things that maybe nobody ends up talking about or get lost in the shuffle a little bit. Um, so talk me through number 24.
24. Let me see. Okay, so 24 is Rumors by Guy Medin. Well, it's directed by three people, but the main one is Guy Medin. It's basically a meeting of the G7, which is like the most powerful people in the world who meet, like once a year. But in this case, there's zombies in this meeting, and it's surrealistic, and it's produced by Ari Aster, and it's a mess. It's a mess, but it's an entertaining mess. It's in a way like, well, okay, like number 23, which is Megalopolis. It's a mess, but it's an entertaining mess. Both of them are ridiculous projects that they don't have a single working properly functioning bone in their body, but they end up entertaining you with how ridiculous and how like in a way moronic things develop. But it's it's part of the experience. You need to watch bad films in order to find the good ones.
All right, so we got to talk about Megalopolis because I was hoping it would be on your list. Obviously, Francis Ford Coppola. I mean, is it a movie that you would recommend ultimately?
I don't know how to recommend it. I don't know how to. I don't know how to explain. I was talking to a friend of mine who said, "Oh, when you finish watching it, call me." I ended up calling him the next day, and I explained everything to him, and he's like, "I don't know what to make of it." And I'm like, "I just saw it. Me neither. I don't know." The thing is, it's really difficult. Like I see why the American he doesn't have like an American distribution because it's really well apart from the money, because it cost a lot of money to Francis, but it's really hard to like promote the movie or make like someone who isn't like a cinephile or knows about Francis Ford Coppola or knows about cinema itself. It's really hard to recommend this movie because it's a bunch of things mixed together and some of them are with reason and other with not. The way that I compare it to my friends is that when Rome was collapsing, the games in the Colosseum got more ridiculous. They ended up flooding the Colosseum. They had animals there. They had the emperor running around naked and fighting people and stuff like that. And in some ways, when Francis loses control of his movie, he ends up putting random scenes, and he ends up putting wrestlers and chariot races and toga parties and musical performances, and it's like such a mess. And in pure coincidence, most of these scenes are played in the Colosseum of the world that Francis Ford Coppola has in Megalopolis. It's really a strange project, one that's really interesting and utterly fascinating. But it's like you putting a chair and watching a train wreck. Of course you're going to be entertained. You're going to be entertained. You're going to be wowed by how the destruction of it all. But it's truly a mess, and I'm really disappointed that he. In some ways, I'm disappointed. In some ways, I'm not because I'm disappointed that this is going to be potentially his last film. But he made the one project that he wanted to make. It is the project that he was longing for plenty of decades now. He has been writing this since almost the days of Apocalypse Now. No, so, and in a way, I'm happy for him they got to make it, but I want to see him make something, better.
So, being that he was working on it for so long, I mean, what do you think went wrong here? Do you think it's just like too many ideas competing with each other?
Yeah, basically that. It shows that it has been in the workshop for all of these decades because I think all of those ideas that he crumbled it down like into a couple pages, but he didn't know like how to maneuver around them when no when he's up to the task with directing, when he's on the director's chair, and he has made well, I can't say this term, I was going to say like making chicken salad out of chicken, yeah, he has done that before with Apocalypse Now, because that was a chaotic shoot, and before the film premiered, you saw plenty of rumors about what happened, and that was a mess, or that Francis was on his trailer the majority of the time smoking marijuana, and you're like, okay, yeah, in some ways he has made a mess. He has been able to make masterpieces out of messes. But in this case, it didn't work out. It's too many ideas, too many things scattered across a gigantic canvas. $125 million canvas. In fact, it's pretty ridiculous, and you notice it because there are characters that appear in the movie, and then like a couple minutes after, they're gone. But not that they're gone. They're like vanished, and you're like, but where are they? And then they appear randomly in a scene. You're like, oh, there they are. Are you going to do something interesting? No, that he forgot about it, and it's a mess. It's a mess, but entertaining at best. It's fun.
Well, if it's half as entertaining as your description, I'm down for whatever.
I think people. My friend said that. My friend said, "Okay, it sounds ridiculous, and I want to see it." And I think I sold him because Aubrey Plaza says the line, and it goes like this. He said she says to Adam Driver, "You're how was it? You're so anal and I'm so oral." I think it was the line. And my friend said, "Okay, you got me. I want to watch it now." And I'm like, that's what got you, not the wrestlers, the chariot races, or the or the anything else. But it's yeah, it's a mess, but people need to see it. I want people to see it just because, it's Francis, and watch the mess. You need to see this whole mess for yourself to believe it.
um. Okay, so do you think that any cinephile awards bodies are going to embrace it as Francis Ford Coppola's swan song potentially?
I don't think the Oscars are going to do so. It's so weird and so like messy for them to recognize it. If they didn't they didn't award Babylon that much either. And that was like
Mm.
a messy picture. And they respect Francis Ford Coppola way more. He has a Best Picture win. He has two, right? He has two Best Picture wins, I think. I don't remember exactly, but he's well respected by not only the Academy but everybody who glances upon a movie. But maybe international bodies may
Mm.
may grant him a nomination or something. But I truly don't see it with the main players. I don't see it with the SAGs or the BAFTAs or the Oscars or something like that. It's too much of a mess for them to recognize it and give an award to a legend.
All right. So just quickly, Coppola has 5 Oscars. He has, let's see, a Best Picture win for Godfather Part 2, a Best Director win for Godfather Part 2, Best Screenplay for Godfather Part 2, and then he also has a Best Screenplay for the original Godfather and Best Screenplay for Patton.
Okay.
Patton. Wow. Pronunciations are A plus on this podcast. Clearly, I have not seen that movie, whatever it is.
No, I haven't seen it either. I haven't seen it either.
All right. I don't know if this podcast can top the Megalopolis discussion, but keep going. What's next?
Oh my god. Okay, so we're going. The next one, number 22, is Block Pass. It's it's okay. The thing, it's better made than Megalopolis, but in some ways, I still feel like that I'm more inclined to see again Megalopolis more so than Block Pass. But because the thing is that Block Pass, it suffers from the same problem that Holy Cow had. It follows such a basic structure, and it does so little with its ideas. But there's a sort of like an emotional core, an emotional line there that in some ways is pretty touching. And the last frame that the film has, it's truly beautiful. It got me emotional. But I think that that last scene was, or how that last scene played out, it was already too late for me because I was so disengaged with the film itself that by that point I got emotional, but it wasn't like a too strong of an effect that stayed with me throughout the entire festival. I saw it, then a couple days later, there are so many powerful movies, that feeling, that shot, like faded away, instantly.
All right. So maybe not something you'd be itching to recommend.
No, no. If I were to recommend like some of these, like out of this bunch I have talked about, Megalopolis because the mess. You need to see it to believe it, and I think people will connect with Emilia Pèrez. I think people will connect with Emilia Pèrez. And talking about Oscars, there is a potential that Emilia Pèrez may get some Oscar nominations now that Netflix I think it's handling it. I think it may get some Oscar nominations, maybe Best Actress and International Feature in its best day, but it depends if the Oscars, if the Academy is up for such a weird project, because it's a musical and a crime drama at the same time, and in some ways it's a little bit, heightened in its tone. It's sometimes a little bit ridiculous and sometimes a little bit more seriously. And it's a weird combination. So if they're up to that, it may get some nominations. Plus, possibly, of course, original score and original song as well. So it has a nice package.
All right, what number are we up to now?
21, which is I think it is my the film I'm most disappointed with because
Oh no,
it's Bird by Andrea Arnold. I love Andrea Arnold a lot.
I
love
do
Andrea
too. Oh,
I
that's
love
disappointing.
American Honey. American Honey, I think, is one of the best films of the 2010s. It's amazing. It's a really great movie, and I love all of her work. I loved she did a documentary called Cow like 2-3 years ago, and American Honey. Her adaptation of Wuthering Heights. It's truly underrated and a very poetic movie that I really really like. But Bird, it's in some way it is her most playful. It is her most she's most out there as a director. She doesn't she uses elements that she has used before, but in this case in a more implementing the magical realism more than before, because in this case it follows a young girl and the trials and tribulations of her living in a very rotten society of like a gutter basically, and it's her trying to live her life up with her father. That her father's played by Barry Keoghan, and at one point Barry Keoghan sings Yellow by Coldplay to a frog to get out the psychedelic ooze so he can sell it, and he does that while drunk. And I don't know what to make of that scene, but it's part of the problem because the father is called Bug and there's a character called Bird, and then you try you're playing with the anthropomorphic elements, to implement it with the magical realism that she has done before but more subtle, and in this case she's doing it more like in your face. And in that comes the problem because I think she doesn't implement those elements quite well. I think she like doesn't know how to make them work without putting them too, how do I say this? The thing is that I don't know how to explain it because I'm really frustrated with this film, and it was really hard for me to write that review because I'm truly disappointed. But the thing is that the anthropomorphic elements that she uses basically are too in your face for the film's narrative and its emotional core to work on you. And because the Bird, the character Bird, which is played by Franz Rogowski, of course it's named Bird, and the first time you see it he's introduced by a gust of wind, and it's obvious, okay, and then he does like a sort of dance, and he stands on the top of rooftops, like a bird, like a seagull or a stark, I think that bird is called. But it's so odd in how she wants to implement those elements of magical realism and anthropomorphism in a narrative so grounded that the two can balance each other out. It's either you get that in your face ridicule, or you get some sweet moments, but inside those sweet moments you get also in your face moments, because she is well known for using her using the settings of her films as a means of storytelling. You see the rural streets, or in some cases, you see the pastorals and the vistas of you know of the of her landscapes. And in this case, she uses there's a couple sequences where she uses the walls which are graffitied as like to add to that narrative. But the thing is that they're truly like very obvious what she's trying to do. Like these aren't like messages that are basically poetic itself like her previous work. These are like, oh, you'll get better, or oh, you'll have a good day. And then like the third message is like a rude, it's something to fit in with the setting itself, with the gutter,
Mm.
with the low, the all that. But it's so odd, and I admire that she wants to be more playful than before, and she doesn't want to do the same thing all over again, but I just couldn't connect with it at all. And many people did. Many people did. Like when it premiered, plenty of people were talking about a potential award by the jury, and it was many people's favorite. But I thought it was so disappointing that I just couldn't connect with it at all.
Yeah, this just based on the reactions online, I felt like the lineup was so polarizing, and especially Bird too. I felt like I was kind of bobbing back and forth between, oh, this person really liked it, this person didn't really like it. Has that been your experience with like other Cannes lineups, or did you also kind of feel like this one was a little bit uneven, or
Well, from what I have seen, since I have covered like the previous festivals, like online mostly,
Mm.
I haven't had that like experience of hearing like when you get out of the theater, like, oh, this sucked, or this like was really good. In this case, it happened all the time, all the time. Everybody was like, oh, I really like this, and the other one, oh, like this is terrible, like at a constant basis. I don't know if that's like part of the experience, but it was really fun seeing that. But seeing the reactions from other like canned lineups, there have been others that you know like in 2021 when there was Memoria and Worst Person in the World and Titan,
Mm.
and everybody was like raving. Everybody was like, oh, this is really good, this is really good. But in this one, it was like a very
Yeah.
mixed lineup. And I think that not only happened with Cannes. I think in Berlinale, I felt the same way. I covered a couple films, and I saw like tried to keep up with what everybody was watching, and most of the time it was like very divisive. And at Sundance it happened too, so I don't know if festival coordinators and programmers are like trying to make the festival not so like trying to play with the lineup, and not
Mm.
giving everything the spectacular, and then something like that. They want to mix things up and make things more interesting, and in a way it is better that a film gets that tethering between I liked it and I didn't, instead of otherworldly praises, because then the conversation is mostly like one-sided. Oh, what do you like about it? Oh, what did you like about it? Instead of a conversation like what worked for you and what didn't. I think that's more interesting.
Mm. I mean, all publicity is good publicity. I
Exactly.
hadn't considered that. I don't know if that's such an interesting point of like, is it on purpose or not? Or is the amount of buzz something that's going to generate like an amount of buzz? Does that play into whether it's selected or not? In addition to obviously the glitzy stars or who the filmmaker is, like, is the conversation that exists around a film part of the consideration?
I think maybe. I think there's a possibility,
Mm.
because the programmers often see these films, and what of course they see the stars, because there are a couple films in the lineup that have big stars, but they have been considered like awful, or
Hmm.
very mediocre. But I think it's interesting. I think it's far more interesting, to see how they divide the lineups, what goes in competition or what goes like on your other sections. It's
Mm-hmm.
and I think they divided it quite well this year.
All right, and for the record, for anyone who's watching or listening, I don't know what's on this list. So if I seem like I'm like rushing or excited, it's because I really want to know what else we're going to talk about. So go ahead and tell me what your next film
Yeah,
is.
I think the most interesting films are on the latter half of the.
All right, all right.
Okay, so
Are we
at number.
moving into like you like it more territory, or are we still in films that you struggled with?
No, I think no, we aren't even close.
Oh boy. Okay. That's good. That's good.
I'm really picky. I'm really picky. I'm
Okay, that's
sorry.
fine. Good to know. Good to know. That's great. All right.
So at number 20, there was a Christmas film in Cannes called Christmas Eve in Miller's Point, which was interesting, considering that most of us were sweating profusely on the ticket lines. It was so odd to see a Christmas film in the summer, especially in Cannes, with this extremely hot weather. But and the film follows an Italian American family, as they plan for what may be or may not be their last family dinner gathering, because the matriarch is dying. Her condition is worsening, and the two heads of the family are like talking, oh, should we sell the house, should we keep it? And within that questioning comes like whether the gatherings are are basically lifted by the matriarch who gathers them all, or they generally want to be there, they want to be for each other. And I think that is the most interesting point of the film, but it is the one that is mostly dismissed. I think the director puts that on the sides and instead like focuses on each member of the family, because there isn't a particular protagonist. It's basically mostly scattered across different people. We see the cousins, we see the kids, we see two police officer. One is played by Michael Cera, who seems to be acting in a very different movie from the other guys. I don't know, it felt so weird seeing him, but he's acting in a very different movie. It is a Christmas movie in the one he's acting, but it's not the one with jolly and cheer. The holiday cheer. It's not that one. But it's so odd. Like, my problem mainly with the film is that it doesn't do much with its ideas. I think it may be an indie Christmas hit, but in general, like, it's so mediocre. It's like very by the numbers. And at the finale, you get like a sweet but somewhat sad scene. For you to reflect. You're like, okay, fine, yeah, yeah, go on with it, because you can't be bothered by it, because since the director wants to focus on each member of the family instead like of shortening down the characters, because there are plenty of them. You don't get to see them most, like, you don't need to see them like thoroughly. You don't get involved with them that much to engage with them, because there's one scene, we a couple of them, but then we go to another one, then we go to another one, we go to another one, and then that collective feeling doesn't join into something effective or emotional. And
Mm.
I couldn't connect with it. And I'm a bit of a I'm a bit of a Scrooge. I don't like Christmas movies that much, so that may be part of the problem as well.
All right, so not the movie that I'll be watching with my mom this year. Good to know. We'll stick to the holiday, I guess. All right,
Yeah.
okay, so keep going.
19, it's called Ghost Cat Anzu. I don't have really much to talk about it. By that point, I was extremely exhausted. So I didn't review this film because of that. I was really exhausted. I did, I saw I promise you I saw the film, but I don't remember it. The only thing I can compare it to is like a Miyazaki movie. It's a little bit like Totoro in the way that the main figure, in this case a ghost cat named Anzu, it's like a reflection, or more like a guide to help a young kid mourn the death, and go through the trials and tribulation of being a kid, and but it's fine, I guess. It's sort of fine, I don't know, I was really tired by that point at the festival, so I had to watch something calming, and indeed this was calming.
All right. Okay. I'll take it.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
All right. All right. Keep going.
Okay, so okay, on number 18, there's a really interesting one. There's a really interesting one because when it first screened, all I heard was praises. But then as the festival went on, that flame that it had, it came diminishing slowly and slowly until it evaporated. And it's called The Girl with the Needle. The Girl with the Needle, it's a drama based on real events, but in the way that director Magnus von Horn, which directed a really interesting film about social media influencers called Sweat, back in 2021. Um, the way that he develops his films, it almost feels way too masturbatory. I think it's with what he wants to do, which is like depicting all of this tragedy. Because okay, I don't know if I should say what the film is about, because in some way that's part of like the hook for some
Hmm.
people. But it's about murder, but it's not murdering adults. It's murdering, you know. No, it's okay. I will say it's
All
baby. It's a baby killer.
Wow. Okay.
It's a baby killer. But the thing is, um, there are good performances. There's good black and white cinematography, but that's it. Because in how Magnus von Horn develops everything, it feels too cold for its own good, and it
Mm.
feels too dramatic in order to be effective, or in order to be hooked onto it for the 2 hours that it lasts. But at least it had good performances, and the production is quite solid, and the cinematography is it's truly astonishing. It's truly astonishing cinematography. It's black and white cinematography, so you can't go wrong with that. But I have many problems with it, and I talked to a couple people that saw it, and they had the same problem. But one of them said that they had the same problem, that I felt that it was too cold and masturbatory. But at the same time, he said that it was like somewhat the purpose. But
Mm.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all, because I think it wants to be too cruel in depicting these real to life events, but I don't think that serves justice to the audience watching.
Mm. Can you say the title one more time?
The Girl with the Needle.
Oh, The Girl with the Needle.
Yep.
I don't know what it says about me, but this is probably the most intriguing film that you've talked about so far.
Yeah,
Uh,
it is interesting. It is an interesting film. Because at first you have the doubts about where it's going to head, and how is it going to be approached. I didn't connect with it much, but there are many people that actually really liked it, and its cold, cruel depiction, and
mm,
they say it services the film. I don't think it do, I don't think it doesn't, but at least people are connect with it, to some degree.
That's interesting. I really want to watch it because I want to see if I agree. And I took a moment to write down Sweat because that also seems like an interesting film to visit.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Keep going.
Okay. Oh my God, we have a long way to go. Let me see if I can rush a couple
No,
of these ones
okay,
because
actually let's pause for a second. Do you want to do like part 1, part 2? Like maybe we talk about cuz you had 28, right? So do you want to do like we can do your first 14 and then 14?
um I don't know. It's your choice, really. I can rush a couple of these ones because I don't have
I
much.
mean, I'm good cuz I don't have anything pressing happening after this. But if don't want to be here for another hour, totally up to you.
Yeah, we can do the part 1 and 2 if you
Okay.
want.
Yeah, so I think we'll stop at maybe 14, so it'll be like half and half.
Yeah, we'll be covering the the films I considered I didn't like and the ones that I did like.
I mean, but I feel like talking about what you didn't like is super interesting. Maybe
Yeah,
we could
yeah,
do like 14 and then we'll do like a tease for the rest or something.
yeah. We can do that.
Okay.
Okay, so
All right.
let me
So what
see.
number are we on now?
We're at 17. We're
Okay.
at 17. When the light breaks. I think this film won like I think it won an award at Uncertain Regard Award. I don't remember which one, but it was the opening film of the Uncertain Regard section. It's about a young girl who is dealing with the death of her partner, but you know, the the very unexpected death of her partner because
Mhm.
as they spent one last night together, well, a night together, she it was going to be the last one. But as they spend a night together, he steps away to some sort of trip with another friend of his. And at that moment, when he's leaving, he's in a tunnel, and the tunnel like a flame erupts through the tunnel, capturing, trapping everybody who's there and killing many people. And one of them was her partner, and she's dealing with this grief, and the film is divided in different locations, in which in each location is like a different stage of the mourning process. We have
Mm.
the rejection, we have the acceptance, we have the struggle, the mourn, every step of the mourning process, but through different location, and each location you have a different set of character dynamics per se, and it's an interesting project. But I think where the film fails specifically is in the last strand, or in between. Well, not in the last strand per se. I have two issues. The first issue is the transitions between each location. I think they cut things off way too quickly in each location to purpose, to process everything and fully develop each morning stage, um like to function properly. And in between those transitions, you get a weird and detaching synth score, which I thought it was really awful. That the score, I think it didn't fit what the director was doing. I think
Mm.
the director is called Runarsson, if I'm not mistaken. But the score is terrible, and hearing that score through each transition, which I think there are like five different locations in the film, but in each one, like, you get out of one to go to another, and in between there's a score, and it really bothered me because in that moment I got detached. And when in one location I was fully going with it, but then I get detached. I'm going with it and I'm detached, and then it
Mm.
continues that trend. And in the latter half, my problem is that when Runer begins to, how do I say, when he begins to play with the imagery in a brilliant way, he stops. He sets a couple images that are really fascinating. There's one where there's two women in between a glass door, and as the light hits the glass, it combines the two faces. When the camera's like a bit far away, when you see it, the two faces like blend, and it's it comes with the universal theme of grief. Everybody mourns, everybody goes through the grieving process, so he wants to play with that. But I think he doesn't do that as much. He does that like twice or three times, but then he stops. And I think those are the sequences that are its most fascinating. And it wasn't bad particularly, but I think he could have played more with the topic instead of relying somewhat to that location transition, location transition, location transition.
All right, give me the title of this one more time.
When the light breaks.
When the Light Breaks. I love a film that digs into grief. So actually, this seems super interesting to me. Another one that I'm really intrigued by. I'm curious if the score is going to bother me. Although maybe now that you mentioned it, that's all I'm going to hear. Be like, oh, that's what Hector was talking about.
Yeah.
All right, take me to Sweet 16.
Well, it isn't that sweet, but it is. It's called Ghost Trail. It's basically a play in the spy genre, but it's not the spy genre that we know of today. It's not the James Bonds. It's not the Bourne. It's not the action focus. It's more pensive. It's more thoughtful. It's more like classic French spy thrillers of the 60s, instead of what we have today. And it's about a guy, a refugee, who is in a network, a European network of refugees that are searching for other refugees and other people who have, emigrated to Europe after a war. I don't remember which one was it. Let me check in my notes real quick. I can find it fast. I'm scrolling through my notebook that I had here.
You're good. And you said this one was
pen.
called Ghost Light?
Trail.
Ghost Trail. Ghost Trail.
Yes, Ghost Trail. Here it is. I have like a bunch of pages. It's absolutely ridiculous how much I wrote over there. It's like absurd.
Well, while you find it, I mean, that brings me to an interesting question of like, how do you approach watching the movie, reviewing? Like, do you have a process that you like to go through?
I take my time. I don't like writing rushed, because I think when I write rushed, like the poorest reviews come from writing rushed, in my opinion. And I have noticed that in some of the reviews I did, like not last month, but like at the beginning of the year, I was a bit rushed. Like at Sundance, I felt like everything was too poorly structured and my schedule was a mess. Then I had to rush out a couple things, and it didn't, like, my best work didn't came out. And in this case, I started because I used to write it on a Google Docs page, an empty one. I started my reviews there. But in this case, for Can and for the future, I decided to write it on a notebook, on a pen and paper or pencil, and put it on the Google Docs, because I can organize myself faster and I can make edits. What works and what doesn't. And it has worked for me pretty good. I really like writing on the notebook first. Having my first draft on my notebook and then the second one on the Google Docs. I think that was really helpful.
That's absolutely fascinating. Also, I mean, in my experience, like when I watch a film at a festival, the festival does, whether we wanted to or not, like influence our experience. Like a lot of times I'll watch a movie again afterward and then I'll feel differently. And I agree with you. One of the reasons why usually when I do a festival, I do capsule reviews is because I find it really difficult to like process a movie so quickly after seeing it enough to be able to write a full review. So I wonder, like, coming out of the festival and being, has it been what, 2-3 weeks, right?
Yeah,
Do you
almost.
feel like your opinions have changed? Like, I mean, has your ranking changed today based on what it was a few weeks ago?
I mean that yeah, that always happens, with whatever ranking on whatever festival, when you
Mm-hmm.
rewatch a film, you come in conversation with it again, and sometimes you seek more of it, now that you have seen it, you already know how it plays out, but in this case you're paying more attention to the minute details, and everything else. So in some ways, it changes, and there are a couple films that I have, thought about more
Mm.
than what I did at the festival, and it comes with the hype, of course. Films like Anora got plenty of attention, but and people are like, "Oh, this is my favorite film," but there's a chance that a couple of weeks later you're like thinking of it and you're like, "Oh, yeah, I didn't like this one much," but at the same time, the vice versa can happen. There are a couple films like Paul Schrader's "Oh Canada," which I really liked, but as I was writing my review, I thought about, oh, okay, yeah, I like this more than I
Yeah.
actually thought.
I mean, I really respect the fact that you're able to be so critical. I think the festival environment sometimes makes that difficult because you kind of want to be caught up in the hype. You want to see what other people are seeing. At least for me, I don't know. I do think I get caught up in the festival glitz and glam of it all a little bit too much.
Yeah, I mean, it happens, because these are big events, these are big cinematic events, these are cinema fans, meeting, it's basically an event for cinema, In music, you have music festivals. In this case, you have film festivals, and it is inevitable that you get along the hype. And in some cases, there are some films in this list, like I may be a bit quote unquote biased because of my love of a certain genre or a certain director. But
Yeah.
it is best to be, not entirely like 100% like, too harsh on the film, but be critical about it, because this is the work that we do, we're basically like having conversations with films, and this is like what our conversations led to. It is our thoughts on film. It is what we liked about it, how we connected with it, and in some cases, some people don't connect with it at all, but in others, people have a different experience with it. And I think
Yeah.
that's totally valid.
Yeah. That is, I've never actually thought of my relationship to film like a conversation before, but I think you're completely right. It is a two-sided relationship, and that relationship evolves based on time, based on where you are in your life when you first see something. That's really fascinating. You kind of broke my brain a little bit. Are you ready to wrap Ghost Trail and move on, or are there elements of that film that you still want to touch on?
I mean, yeah, the only thing I want to really talk about Ghost Trail is how the director, Jonathan Millet, played with the spy genre, because he's
Mm,
more pensive. He like it's not what we used to seeing in today's spy films. It is more like old school, very stripped back filmmaking. I think there are minor faults here at how he plays with things on the latter half. Things get a bit repetitive. Things get like don't develop properly. But I think he has a good future. I'm really excited to see what he does next, because if he does this same thing, not the same thing, but like in how he breaks apart a genre that we have a different notion on, and we do a like a throwback film, but in his own version, I think it will be a very interesting filmmaker in the future.
mm. All right. Well, I'm excited to see what's ahead. Hit me with your next one.
Okay, so the next one is Savanna and the Mountain. Um, it is basically a portrait of a city. It is a depiction of a city and a small town, and its inhabitants. Almost documentary-esque, but it's a narrative. But it's a narrative that's being played by the same people of that town. And I think that's the most interesting thing in how the director, I don't remember his name. Let me check real quick. Paulo Carneiro. In the way that Carneiro did a story about that small town and then decided to cast the real inhabitants of that town to tell a story about the struggles. And the struggles are that the inhabitants are fighting against a company that wants to build some some mines over there, and they're going to ruin the city, the essence of the city basically, and they're fighting for what's theirs. And it's interesting because how he plays with each scenario, because it feels documentary-esque because it's mostly played in vignettes. You see these moments, each one depicting and showing the essence of the city, and you get to know these people, and you get to realize what makes this town special, and why are these people fighting for it. I think the problem comes with how repetitive it gets,
Mm.
because it's a vignette, so already it is a really hard structure for people to palette, since these scattered moments across an hour and a half. It's a bit hard to get into it sometimes, but at least the message and the messaging gets through. So if Carneiro has something going for it, it is that the film indeed is effective.
All right, so we have decided, and I am equally disappointed because, as I said, I don't know what's on the list. So I will also be on the edge of my seat. But we decided to split this episode and do a part 1 and part 2. So why don't you do one more film, give us a good tease, and then we'll call it a day.
Okay. So the next one, I was going to sing in Spanish, my bad. The next one is The Story of Souleymane, which I think this one won the Uncertain Regard prize, and it won the acting prize as well for the actor whose name is, I remember the last name, I don't remember the first name. And his name is Abu Sangare, who he is excellent. He is effortlessly such a good actor, and it is his debut role, so I can see why
Wow.
he won the prize. The film is basically like a Dardenne brothers film. Basically, it's a guy, and this another story about a refugee who is struggling in a city that's constantly moving forward, and he's threading back, since it is a new location. It is hard for him to get accustomed to, and it follows the 48 hours before his big interview that will get him the visa, so he can stay in Paris. And it shows these sequences through with some tension, almost like a thriller, but it's not a thriller. But it gets you inside the head, the frustration, the angst he has, because he wants to stay, he wants a better life, but at the same time he's struggling to do so. He's earning little money. He no, he doesn't have no. He's trying to make ends meet, basically. So, in some I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it to some degree because, first off, the performances are very genuine and they feel organic. They aren't overly dramatic or something of the sort. It's again, it's like Ardardine's film. It suffers from a couple threads being loose in the middle part of it, but it's rather affecting thanks to the lead performance by Sangare.
Is that a performance that you think could translate into acclaim of any sort, or is it just a career launching pad?
I think from independent bodies, award bodies or critic circles, if they get if it gets American distribution, with I don't think it has still, but maybe, I don't see it as a big push, like an Oscars or in a big
Mm.
awards body, but maybe an independent, the Indie Spirit Awards or something like that, maybe can latch onto it if they get their hands on it.
Hmm. So, looking at the films that we talked about, um, other than Megalopolis, what would be like the film that you would actually recommend people seek out for better or worse?
Well, apart from Megalopolis, the girl with the needle, because people actually liked it. I didn't personally, but a lot of people liked it. So I think, it comes like a 50-50 split if
Mm,
you would like it or not. So I think people should get that chance. Um the Ghost Cat Anzu is like a really palatable film. Many people can like it. It's charming and it's sweet, and in some ways melancholic, but it's easy and it's animation, so you have the kids that can watch it, and people can connect with it. And people that like Studio Ghibli films can also like latch onto it. So that one.
mm,
Um the Story of Souleymane, it's a good, well done drama, and Ghost Trail is like a play in what we know about spy thrillers, or
mm.
spy films itself. So those films are one that I will recommend. But if you want to see something audacious that it's once in a lifetime, Megalopolis is the one.
Um, and which film would you say, sort of, as time has passed, has maybe grown for you in how you feel about it, and maybe which one has gotten worse?
From the festival?
Yeah, of the ones that we've talked about so far.
I think Girl with the Needle has not grown, has worsened for me.
Oh, interesting.
Worse, that one has worsened for me, because at first I thought it was fine, but then as I thought of it, it's like, okay, this is like a bit too proud of itself. I think it's too cold for its own sake, and I don't like it. And another one that we're going to talk about later, Misericordia. I think that's the one that has really grown on me the most.
Mm. All right, well, I'm sad to end it here, but I think that that's the best thing for us to do. But before we go, I do like to end all of our episodes talking about sort of something else in the world of pop culture that we're obsessed with. As you've moved away from Cannes, first of all, do you like to I don't know, take a break from movies, or do you immediately go back into watching other things?
Um, okay, so I got back and then I wanted to see Furiosa. I went to see
Mm-hmm.
Furiosa. So
So
because I
you
didn't see
didn't catch it at the festival.
I didn't see anything that was going to release soon, because
Oh, okay.
why would I waste a spot in
Yeah.
something that I'm going to see like in a month or in a
Mm-hmm.
week or something like that? It's not worth it. I prefer watching films that are going to take their time on being released, because I may not get the chance to see it until like a year or 2 years.
Yeah.
There are films still from Cannes or Berlin from 2 years ago that are currently now releasing. It's 2 years. It's too much time, and there's some of them that
Mm-hmm.
drop on Netflix, randomly, and they don't promote it, so they get lost. So I prefer to give it its deserved attention, whether I like it or not. Because I'm still giving it attention that it deserves. Because they're playing at a big festival. So I prefer watching films that are going to release later in the year, or at least not going to get distribution until very, very later. Instead of watching new releases, they're going to see like in theaters like in a month, like Kinds of Kindness. I didn't see that one either.
Mm. Well, that's a bummer. I was hoping we'd get to talk about that one.
No, I did. I almost nabbed the ticket, but I said no. I said no. I want to spend my time watching things that I may not see.
That's completely fair and a smart strategy. What did you think of Furiosa?
I liked
I'll
it.
let you. Okay, you liked it.
I really liked it. I
Yeah.
liked it more than I thought I would, because Okay, many people like see as Mad Max Fury Road as one of the best action films of all time. I don't think so. I think it's a very good one, but it's not like one of the best of all time in my opinion. But Furiosa was really thrilling because the thing with Mad Max is that Mad Max is basically based on exploitation films, more so exploitation films.
Mm.
And I really like and study, those type of films. I really like to dive into them because they're so fascinating. They're like projects of their own time. And Mad Max was based upon films like Death Game or things like that. And I really found it interesting. And when I saw Furiosa is like a George Miller's take on revenge thrillers.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Mad Max was like the exploitation chase film, something like Spielberg's Duel or something like that. And Furiosa was like a revenge thriller, like a rape revenge thriller. But in this case, wait, there's no rape in the movie, but it's like a revenge thriller, and I really enjoyed that at this age, at this point in his career, after making so many films, he's still like using what made his career this legendary, still using it as reference, still using those exploitation films, those exploitation films, as reference for his success. It's unfortunate that this film is not a box office success overall. It's going to get lost
Yeah.
soon. It's going to get ran out of theaters soon enough.
I
But
I think I agree with you. I mean, I have to be honest. I don't think I'm the prime audience for Furiosa. It's not my go-to genre, but I did like it way more than I was expecting. And even with Fury Road, I do really like Fury Road. I agree with you. I think the sort of hyperbole that exists around that movie sometimes is a little bit too much for me. So I did really like Furiosa. I enjoyed it. I was looking forward to seeing how it was going to play out. But in terms of the box office, I'm not shocked because, I have friends, I'm sure you do too, that only go to the movies once or twice a year. And Furiosa is just not going to be a movie that I'm going to recommend to those people. I'm going to recommend it to somebody who's a cinephile, somebody who might particularly be passionate about action. But is it something that's going to appeal to the average person? I don't really
yeah,
think so, And as
I
much as
agree.
I enjoyed it, is it the kind of thing that I definitely want to see again? Like Dune 2, I immediately wanted to go see it again. Challengers, I'm probably going to try to see it again before it leaves theaters. But Furiosa,
I don't want to get into this discussion, but I didn't like either Dune 2 or Challengers.
oh, oh no.
Yeah. But the thing that made I want to see Furiosa again, but I currently don't have the time, and I want to see it again, but it's more so because of the last sequence. I think that last
Mm,
sequence, those like 15 minutes, they're so good. They're
yeah,
so good because the thing is that George Miller puts you on this, character. It's basically a hero's journey, but it does the action and it takes time to philosophize. And I think he did so in such a brilliant way that people are not like exactly noting it and how swiftly he changes from the popcorn entertainment segments to like this thematical dissection like in a snap of his fingers. And I think that's what made the movie for me.
yeah. Much like your list that we're gonna get into, I think the back half of that movie is a lot stronger than the first half. It took a while to get going, but yeah, the ending was particularly strong. I have to recommend Babes. I don't know if you have gotten around to it. It's the
No,
Michelle
I haven't
Bateau,
seen it yet.
Iana Glazer comedy. It's really good. It's really sweet. It reminds me of Obvious Child, or just like a indie movie that's going to be something that I'm going to want to revisit, again and again. It's just a story about friendship and motherhood, and it's a lot deeper than what you're expecting. You're sort of expecting like a gross out comedy, but there's a lot of heart to it and a lot of depth. And I really liked it. And it's absolutely, I would say, worth a trip to the theater. And if not, the very least, watching it at home. But Hector, tell the people where they can find you and plug your work. The spotlight is all on you, my friend.
Well, you can find me on Letterboxd on Hector Ha. You can find me on Twitter at Hector Ha too, and on Instagram Hector Ha Reviews. I write for Loud and Clear Reviews, The Movie Buff, and of course In Session Film.
Well, thank you so much. I cannot tell you how much fun I had. I hope people watch this on YouTube just so that they could see my reactions to your dragging some of these films. I cannot wait to see what else is on your list. I will have you back very, very soon. Thank you so much, Hector. Thank you, everyone, for listening and following along with us. Please, rate and review the podcast. Tell your friends. Spread the word. Thank you so much, Hector. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Until next time.